Welcome to this edition of the Western Canada Officiating Coaches Development Partnership. We're getting the part of the season that we might be seeing an official for the second or third time, and it's a fun time of year as we see their growth and their development in their game. This episode, we want to touch on a few items. First, the different avenues we can use to discuss with the officials. When we're in the room with the officials, how we set the stage to open up a dialogue is critical so we can get the officials talking about what they saw, what they did, and why they did it. It will allow us to drive a positive conversation, but will allow us to coach the officials in a way that they understand and can learn from. Let's get started.
I think honesty is key to what you're doing. I like to ask the officials how they like to receive the feedback, and often you'll get officials or athletes say, I just want it straight up. But I'm not sure they always do just want it straight up. And so then that's a little bit more of a conversation of, okay, let's have a discussion. And I think part of coaching is having that discussion on, well, what did you see and what did you process through your mind in that split second on this play or on this scenario, and then being able to say, well, did you think about this, or did you think about this, or did you see this happening, right? Or what led up to that whole situation, which I think is key for us when we're doing our coaching after the game. So I think you just have to take a little bit more time in your breakdown and your analysis of what you saw. You have to build a bit of credibility with the officials, right? And so credibility goes a long way when you're giving that feedback or when you're giving your perception of what happened on a situation.
When I try and talk to an official, it's not so much a critiquing. Again, I want to try and establish dialogue and see what they were maybe thinking in a certain situation, or if they didn't see it, we talk about maybe ways to get a better position, to get a better sight line, to actually see what happened, rather than, I mean, gone are the days of going in and say, you know, you missed a high stick, because every official knows, they have a pretty good idea when they've missed something. So it's more about trying to establish those relationships and creating dialogue to find a solution on how to not miss it again, to create better habits, to get in good position to make good calls.
I personally like negative feedback. It shows what I need to work on as an official. It shows what I can work on in my next game coming up, and then hopefully be able to minimize those mistakes so those mistakes never happen again. Feedback like that, it definitely helps build character too. Sometimes you have to grit your teeth, and sometimes you might not agree with them, but I guess being open to conversation and stuff like that is definitely huge as an official.
There's nothing that beats honesty. If something needs improvement, you can't mask it. You have to work on a process to improve it. But you want to be supportive. You want to build their confidence, but you want to do it in a constructive way. So there's always different methods to do it. But I think that honesty is the best thing.
Obviously, like, any feedback is good feedback, regardless of like what you're hearing. Definitely, like, I like it being like straightforward. I think it's a better approach than kind of sugarcoating things. I definitely like going back to like the bigger picture or whatever. I kind of like honing in on one skill that they really want me to work on, and then that just takes another step as far as going to the next game with that one thing in your mind and working on it. And then if they see you again and they want you to work on something else, then you're going to work on something else. But you know, instead of me dealing with 15 things to worry about, you're dealing with one thing, and at the end of the day, once you kind of complete that one thing that they're looking at, then you work on the next thing, and it just kind of makes you an all-around better official.
I was very, very hard on myself as an official, so I always knew if I did a good job or a bad job. But if I was hard on myself and I didn't have a great game, and a coach came in and said, great job, like, you had a great game, I know myself that I didn't. It's a lot harder to earn respect as an officiating coach if you're not doing that. And the officials pick up on that, right? The officials know if they've had a bad game or a good game. And so if you're going in there and beating around the bush, then you're probably not going to get as much respect as a coach as if you were to go in and give the honest feedback.
The thing about coaching is we all have our own personality and our own thoughts on what officials need to work on. It's important that we give officials ways to improve so they have something to take away and work on for the next games. Each of us can offer officials different insight and different avenues to improve. It's important that we find a balance between the positive aspects of the game and the areas they need to improve on. Our main role is to coach the officials is truly the best part of this job. There's also an assessment piece that we must also have. It's a way in which we can select officials that are deserving to progress to the next level when they're ready. Let's hear some thoughts on how we go about finding the balance between coaching and assessing officials.
Well, I think it was pretty common practice. There was much more negative reinforcement. There was much more surveillance than coaching. You typically knew when there was a supervisor in the building, but sometimes they would sneak in and spy on you. But the feedback for the most part was, why did you do this? Why didn't you do that? How did you miss that? Rather than, what were you thinking? How was your sight line? Like, why did this happen? And there was less dialogue, and there was a wall between the supervisor and the official, and you didn't want to volunteer much information because in so many cases it was held against you. So you were reluctant to say anything. You would just kind of nod your head. And that doesn't apply to everyone. There's some personalities that meshed very well, and you could have some unofficial dialogue. But then as things evolved, and I just thought, you know what, that I didn't like that approach. It didn't help me. It was counterproductive, and all it did was put another brick in the wall, and it didn't help anything. So I wanted to change that because I wanted to help people get better. Now you're not just identifying deficiencies and trying to coach them to be better. Now you're evaluating one person versus the next person. So as much as you're the coach and my boss is the GM, so he gives me my players, and it's my job to coach every single one of those players, but not every one of those players is going to be an all-star. So I'm bound to give my best effort to every single one to help them be better. But at the end of the day, I still have to be able to hang my hat on one over the other. And sometimes it's the really, really tiny things that make the difference between somebody that goes up this season versus somebody that spends another year apprenticing. If you just dwell on the negatives, then the official leaves thinking they only did negative things, and they don't. However, you don't need to pat them on the back for every single little thing that they're supposed to do, because that's part of the job. When they do something above and beyond or show some great insight into a certain situation, then you want to make sure that that's acknowledged, just as much as something that could have been handled better needs to be addressed as well. There are times when you need to have some tough love, and sometimes just saying, you need to be better than that. You weren't at your best tonight, you didn't serve the game properly tonight, and I know you can do better. And you know what? They already know that. But you don't need to beat them up, but you need to make them understand that when they leave that building that they could have been better, and next time they need to be better.
We hope this is a valuable segment for you. Using your own personal experience, your own style and personality will provide unique insight to each official you're coaching. You'll find some of your thoughts really hit home with certain officials, and another officiating coach may hit home with other officials. That is the great thing about having different points of view or thought process. We can reach so many officials in a positive way. Keep enjoying the rinks. Thanks for all you do to make officiating and this game better.